Sunday may have been the final straw for Arthur Smith. After years of gross misutilization for his star offensive players, continuous below-average seasons, and condescending attitude towards the media, it's no secret why Falcons fans and even the fantasy football community want this guy canned. In a little under 3 seasons in Atlanta, Smith has a disappointing record of 20-28. And throughout most of that time, the Falcons played against very weak competition in their division. Tom Brady and the Buccaneers made the playoffs last year, going 8-9. And this year, the 7-7 Buccaneers, led by Baker Mayfield, hold first place in the NFC South. When Smith took over in 2021, there was a pretty odd timeline with the team. Matt Ryan was 36 years old, and it was probably time to draft a quarterback and sit him behind Ryan. Luckily for Arthur Smith, the team he just inherited owned the 4th overall pick in the draft. It was up to Smith and newly hired GM Terry Fontenot to find the direction of this team over the next few years. And instead of turning the page on Matt Ryan and looking towards the future, the team decided to draft a tight end with the 4th overall pick. Now, as a Giants fan, I can 100% relate to this. In 2018, Big Blue took Saquon Barkley 2nd overall with Eli Manning in his late 30s, and there were a few high-end quarterback prospects on the board, including Josh Allen. What the Falcons did here felt eerily similar, and I've seen how this movie plays out before, and it does not end well. Atlanta essentially passed on Justin Fields, and whether that's the right move or not, I don't know. It's unclear how Fields would have performed on a different team and a different system. There's just too many variables. But in Arthur Smith's run-heavy system with RPOs and play-action passing and deep passes, you would think that Fields would have been a nice fit there. They also could have selected Mac Jones if you want to include him too, but you know. But on they went, and they selected Kyle Pitts, the tight end out of Florida. In that same offseason, the team moved on from Julio Jones, and at the perfect time, to be honest, so I'll give them credit for that. Arthur Smith's first season in Atlanta started out with promise, and the team sat at 4-4 after week 9. It was during this time that they lost Calvin Ridley, their wide receiver 1, for the season due to his mental health, and of course the gambling suspension came soon after. But to close out 2021, the second half of the season was not nearly as kind. They finished out the year 3-6 and ended with a 7-10 record, landing them the 8th overall pick in the 2022 draft. As for Kyle Pitts, although he only found the end zone just one time, he did become the 2nd tight end in NFL history to surpass 1,000 yards in his rookie year. In 2022's offseason, the plug was pulled on Matt Ryan, and they flipped him to the Colts for a 3rd rounder. After 14 really good years in Atlanta, it was now a new era with Arthur Smith, Kyle Pitts, and Marcus Mariota? Well, yeah, not the most exciting pivot, but let's see how this one worked out. Mariota played under Arthur Smith in Tennessee for 5 seasons, and one of those as his offensive coordinator. As a dart throw, the team took quarterback Desmond Ridder in the 3rd round out of Cincinnati. In the 1st round, though, it was another skill position player, this time wide receiver Drake London out of USC. And while London has not put up eye-popping numbers in his first 2 years, he's a damn good player. But sadly, the guy has suffered from inept quarterback play and a run-heavy system. In 2022 for the Falcons, it was more of the same. A below-average offense, a below-average defense, and another 7-10 record. Despite the losing record, Atlanta led the league in rushing attempts. This was the first alarming stat about Arthur Smith that made us scratch our heads. According to Sharp Football Analysis, Atlanta ranked dead last in the NFL in neutral pass rate and 31st in the NFL in pass rate over expected. This pretty much tells you that the tendency of the Atlanta Falcons was to always run the ball no matter the game script. Now, how was it that a team that faced plenty of negative game scripts and lost 10 games still led the league in rushing attempts? It just doesn't add up. Normally, the team with the most running attempts would be a team that's winning a lot of games. The 2022 Falcons did not fit that description. So okay, maybe you give Arthur Smith a pass because his quarterback for majority of the year was Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder the final few games of the year. After another letdown season, Atlanta held the 8th overall pick in the 2023 draft. They moved on from Mariota, signed Taylor Heineke from Washington, and doubled down on Desmond Ridder as their quarterback 1. Of course, there was a chance to trade up with the Cardinals, but the Falcons were not lying about Desmond Ridder being their quarterback 1. With the 8th overall pick, Atlanta committed what is pretty much a cardinal sin in today's NFL. Despite all the stats, information, analytics out there telling you the dangers of taking a running back in round 1, The Falcons said the hell with that and took running back Bijan Robinson out of Texas. It was at this point where those who were on the fence about Arthur Smith just completely gave up. The pick of Robinson, 8th overall, was the highest a running back was taken since Saquon Barkley in the 2018 draft. Come to think of it, there were so many parallels between this Falcons era and the Giants in 2018 and 2019. And just ask Pat Shurmur how that went for him. But anyway, in 2023, it was all set up for the Falcons to make the playoffs. And I was one of those people. I went out of my way in August to make a video about the Falcons, hyping them up as a surprise team in 2023. They had the second easiest schedule in the league, a stacked offense of skill players, a quarterback who simply just had to get them the ball, an offensive line that was actually pretty good, and a defense that made some good signings and hired a new defensive coordinator. And while the Falcons were not off to a blazing start, they found themselves in first place in the NFC South after week 13, more than 2/3 through the season. Now once again, it's a very underwhelming division. They may have been in first, but they were 6-6, and coming off a win versus the Jets where they only managed 13 points. We all knew that win was fluky, and really they let the season get away from them from weeks 8 through 10. In week 8, Will Levis made his NFL debut versus the Falcons and lit them up for 4 touchdowns. In week 9, Jaren Hall made the first start of his NFL career, got a concussion early, and Joshua Dobbs, who had been on the Vikings for only 5 days after a trade, had a game-winning drive against them. In week 10, they lost to a 1-8 Cardinals team with Kyler Murray making his season debut coming off a torn ACL. The Falcons don't deserve to be anywhere near the playoffs right now, but technically they're still just one game out. Sunday's loss though was the worst of them all. They came in at 6-7, right in the mix for the NFC South crown, and they completely laid an egg versus a 1-12 Panthers team with an interim head coach. Arthur Smith's offense put up just 7 points, and Bryce Young led a 95-yard game-winning drive, and that drive coming after Desmond Ridder threw one of the most brutal interceptions you'll ever see. Now, while this game was basically played in a monsoon, there is no excuse, and unfortunately, we've seen too much ineptitude from this offense the entire year. The running back that they invested an 8th overall pick in totaled just 7 carries, while their 2022 5th-round pick Tyler Algier had 14 carries. So let's get this straight. The running back you took 5th round 2 years ago doubled the carries of the guy you took 8th overall in the draft last year. Make it make sense. Now, Bijan did lose a fumble and definitely lost some work as a result, but it's also no surprise that Arthur Smith is the type of coach to punish his running back for putting the ball on the ground. Even though he is by far your best back and gives you the best chance to win, but hey, what do I know? Kyle Pitts and Drake London, both top 10 picks once again, totaled 7 targets combined for under 65 yards receiving. The Falcons' big three of Bijan, Pitts, and London touched the ball on just 25% of the offensive plays on Sunday, and Bijan Robinson played a season-low 58% of the snaps. That's not including the game he sat out most of it with a headache. This also meant that Tyler Algier had more touches than all 3 players combined. Reports surfaced before the week that Arthur Smith's job would not be in jeopardy barring some late-season collapse. Well, through 1 week after that report, it's not looking too good. Luckily for Smith, Falcons owner Arthur Blank tends to be gun-shy when it comes to moving on from head coaches. Their past 2 coaches, Mike Smith and Dan Quinn, were definitely given very long leashes to say the least. For most of us though, we've seen enough of Arthur Smith. The guy just isn't a good head coach. He's not a player's coach, he thinks he's a schematic genius, and he coaches like he's the smartest guy in the room. He once went on a 5-minute rant on why Bijan Robinson wasn't getting more touches, and I couldn't agree more with the first reply. I actually listened to the entire answer and I still have absolutely no clue what the reason is. There's certain coaches you feel bad for when things don't work out. Ones that you can tell are genuinely good guys but were set up to fail from the beginning. Arthur Smith, however, will not get that treatment from the public. Due to the smug and condescending attitude and the ability to outsmart himself, no one's going to feel bad. To make another Giants connection, because why not, he reminds me of Ben McAdoo McAdoo, the Giants head coach back in 2016 and half of 2017. He's not personable, condescending, bad with the media, always looking disheveled, and just a bad head coach in general. If he does somehow buy himself an extra year, they must get this quarterback position figured out. I would advocate for trading for Justin Fields or drafting Jaden Daniels, but we'll see what they decide to do. But so far, through almost 3 years, the combination of Smith and Fontenot has been a failure. I personally believe there's enough talent to make it work, but it's also their fault that the quarterback position has not been solved in 3 years. They had their chance to trade up or draft one, and they barely missed out on Deshaun Watson, which may be a blessing in disguise at this point. According to reports, they are going to go with Taylor Heinicke to close out the season at quarterback, which is a move that probably should have happened a while ago. There was even a point in late October where Arthur Smith said that the Desmond Ridder criticism was due to toxic groupthink and came from a lot of people that don't watch film. And at that point, Ridder had 6 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. He also lost 5 fumbles, and overall just made way too many mistakes for a starting quarterback. So can Heinicke save Arthur Smith's job? We shall see. Atlanta gets Indy, Chicago, and New Orleans to close out the year, which all seem like pretty winnable matchups. But if they lose all 3, and that includes that terrible loss to the Panthers, it would not surprise me if Arthur Smith is fired. I'm sure by now a lot of Falcons fans want that anyway, so hopefully for their sake, they get their wish. That's going to do it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like and subscribe if you did, and I'll talk to you guys next time.